In a city where every heartbeat is measured by the ticking of gears, time was once a promise, precise, eternal, unbroken. But when the clocks began to falter, the promise turned to fear. Hours repeated, memories bled into one another, and the hands of fate froze in place. A young clockmaker named Elian Marrow thought he could fix the fracture, until he realized the wound wasn't in the clocks, it was in time itself. What happens when the very thing that defines our lives begins to die? Let's listen to the silence between the seconds and see what remains.
The workshop was a sanctuary of quiet chaos. Elian Marrow sat hunched over a wooden table strewn with tiny gears, springs, and delicate tools that glinted under the dim amber light of a single oil lamp. His slender fingers moved with practiced care, coaxing life back into a small pocket watch as the soft ticking of countless clocks filled the air like a chorus of heartbeats. The scent of oil and aged wood mingled with the faint metallic tang of intricate machinery. Elian's sharp green eyes, often smudged with oil and dust, reflected the flickering light as he adjusted a minute cog. "Steady now," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the rhythmic ticking. It was a language he knew well, spoken in clicks and tocks, a secret dialogue shared with the clocks he tended. Beyond the workshop's narrow windows, the city of Chrona pulsed with life. Here, every clock was more than a mere measure of passing time. They were the very fabric that wove reality together. Each tick shaped the flow of the world, guiding destinies with invisible hands. Streets hummed with the synchronized beating of countless timepieces embedded in walls, towers, and even the cobblestones beneath hurried feet. The people of Chrona moved in harmony with this temporal rhythm, their lives subtly directed by the ceaseless ticking that governed their world. Elian often imagined the clocks as living beings, each with a soul bound to the fate of someone in the city. He spoke to them softly, a habit that earned him curious glances from passers-by, but comforted him in moments of solitude. "Keep steady," he murmured now, his gaze drifting toward the great city clock that dominated the square, a magnificent spectacle of brass and glass, its hands moving with majestic grace. But tonight something was wrong. A faint crack traced itself across the giant clock's gleaming face, like a spider's delicate web spun by unseen hands. The steady ticking faltered, uneven and hesitant, as if the clock's heart had skipped a beat. The crowd below, lost in their daily routines, remained oblivious to the subtle fracture threatening their world. Elian's breath caught. He pressed a finger to the cool glass, feeling the imperceptible vibrations of a disturbance deeper than mere mechanics. An instinctual chill crept along his spine, the first sign of instability in the flow of time itself. He pulled his coat tighter against the evening chill and stepped outside, the sounds of the city wrapping around him like a living tapestry. The lamplights cast long shadows across the cobblestones as the buzz of distant conversations and footsteps wove through the air. Yet beneath the familiar symphony, Elian sensed a discordant note, a tremor in the city's pulse. As he gazed up at the cracked clock face, his mind raced. What did this fracture mean? Could a broken gear unravel the destiny of thousands? The thought was both terrifying and mesmerizing. "Elian!" A voice called softly from behind. He turned to see a passing messenger, her quick steps faltering as she noticed his focused stare. The city's inhabitants moved with a strange detachment tonight, unaware of the looming threat. Returning to the workshop, Elian sat again among his clocks, their ticking a fragile comfort. He ran his hands over the worn wood, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon him. Somewhere within the machinery, within the silent gears and spinning hands, lay the key to the city's fate, and he was determined to find it. As the night deepened, the crack on the great clock grew more pronounced, a silent herald of the chaos to come. Elian whispered once more, "Hold steady, old friends. Time is fragile, but perhaps so are we." Outside, the city's heartbeat faltered, and in that trembling pause, the first threads of a curse began to unravel. The soft glow of twilight filtered through the cracked window panes of the workshop, casting long shadows over tables cluttered with tiny gears and polished cogs. Elian Marrow sat hunched over a worn blueprint. The delicate lines of the cracked city square clock spread before him like a map to a hidden world. Around him, the steady ticking of countless clocks filled the air, a rhythmic heartbeat that seemed to pulse through the walls themselves. Master Calder stood silently by the far wall, his silver hair catching the fading light, his eyes deep pools of wisdom and worry. The old man's hands, marked by decades of delicate work, rested lightly on a wooden workbench. "The crack runs deeper than it seems," Calder said quietly, his voice a low rumble in the ticking symphony. "Time is not just measured here, Elian. It is held, shaped, and sometimes broken." Elian nodded, his sharp, green eyes flicking between the blueprint and the worn brass gears beside him. "I can feel it," he murmured, "like the clock itself is, breathing unevenly." Calder's gaze softened, but the weight of caution remained. These clocks were never meant to be mere instruments. They hold the threads of fate, binding the city's lives to their ticking hearts. When one falters, the ripples spread unseen, twisting destinies. The room seemed to grow colder as Elian leaned back, a shiver running down his spine. It was then that he heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible over the ticking. At first, he thought it was the wind slipping through the cracks, but the voice was too deliberate, too insistent. It spoke in a language older than the city itself, fragments of warnings and forgotten names. "Past clockmakers," Elian breathed, his fingers trembling slightly. "They were trying to tell me something." Calder's eyes narrowed. "Listen carefully, Elian. The whispers are not just echoes. They are the remnants of those who came before, bound to the very mechanisms they crafted. Their knowledge is a blessing and a curse." The apprentice closed his eyes, letting the whispers wash over him like a tide. Names flickered faint, mournful threads of memory tangled with the present. The crack in the city square clock was no accident. It was a symptom of a deeper fracture in the fabric of time itself. A sudden knock at the workshop door broke the trance. Miravos slipped inside, her cropped auburn hair tousled from the evening breeze, brown eyes sharp and alert. "Elian," she said urgently, "rumors are spreading fast. Strange things happening in the lower districts, people caught in loops, as if time itself is fraying." Elian's heart quickened. "Show me." Together, they walked through the narrowing streets alive with murmurs of fear and confusion. Mira's knowledge of secret routes and hidden alleys brought them close to the heart of the city's unrest. Whispers reached them of repeated moments, vanished memories, and shadows slipping between seconds. "The clocks are breaking," Mira said grimly, "and the city feels it." Back in the workshop, surrounded by the ticking legions of timepieces, Elian pondered the weight of his mentor's words and the urgency in Mira's voice. The curse was no longer a distant threat, it was unraveling before them, threatening to consume all they knew. He looked once more at the cracked blueprint. "We must find a way to repair it," he said, determination hardening his tone, "before the city's fate is lost to the broken gears." The whispers grew louder, the ticking faster, as Elian's journey into the heart of time's mystery deepened. Somewhere in the shadows, the past clockmakers watched, their voices a haunting chorus that urged him onward, toward truths that could save or doom them all. Yet as the night deepened and the clocks ticked on, Elian could not shake the feeling that time itself was watching and waiting. The city seemed to hold its breath beneath the heavy sky, the usual chorus of bells and chimes now fractured, as if time itself had stumbled and faltered. Elian Marrow paused at the city square, eyes fixed on the grand clock that loomed above the cobblestones, a magnificent relic of brass and glass, but now marred by a jagged crack that spiderwebbed across its face. The clock's hands trembled erratically, skipping and jittering as if caught in a frantic dance with unseen forces. Around him, the city was caught in strange loops. A street vendor shouted the same call again and again. A child's laughter echoed repeatedly down an alleyway, and passers-by blinked as if stuck in a moment they could not escape. Elian felt a chill press against his skin, a whisper in the air that spoke of unraveling threads and broken promises. He stepped closer, fingers itching to touch the mechanism, to soothe the disorder with the gentle art of repair. But this was no ordinary fault. The gears inside were fractured, some twisted beyond recognition, others missing teeth that should never have broken. The metal groaned softly, the sound like a lament beneath the ticking that filled the square. The gears, they're broken, Elian murmured, voice barely above the whisper of the wind, and not like any I've seen before. Behind him, a familiar voice called softly, "Then we must find a way, Elian. There is no other choice." Turning, Elian found Mira Voss threading her way through the crowd toward him, her sharp eyes scanning the trembling faces around them. "There's talk in the lower districts," she said, her tone pragmatic but edged with concern. "People are trapped in loops, reliving moments over and over. It's spreading." Together, they slipped away from the square, weaving through narrow lanes that twisted like the inner workings of a clock. Mira led him down shadowed alleys and beneath archways hidden from the casual eye. The city here was different, quieter, but beneath that silence lurked a tension that hummed beneath the skin. In the workshop later, Elian hunched over the contraption he had carefully lifted from the clock tower. The broken gears lay scattered across the workbench, their jagged edges catching the flicker of candlelight. The scent of oil and metal filled the cramped space, mingling with the faint, irregular ticking of countless clocks lining the walls. He picked up a gear, tracing the cracks that marred its surface. His fingers trembled, not from cold but from a deeper, gnawing fear. These were no ordinary breaks. They seemed to pulse with a dark energy, as if the very fabric of fate had seeped into the metal and warped it. A sudden dizziness swept over him, and the workshop shifted. Shadows lengthened and twisted, the ticking slowed, then sped up erratically. Elian's breath caught as a vision engulfed him, memories not his own, yet intimately familiar. His parents, caught in a blur of shattered time, their faces etched with panic and sorrow. The moment of their disappearance, fractured and repeating endlessly like the broken clock itself. He stumbled back, heart pounding, the echo of their voices lingering in the air. "Why does this happen?" he whispered. "What ties this curse to my family?" Mira's steady hand on his shoulder anchored him to the present. "We'll find answers. But you can't do this alone." The days that followed were a whirlwind of whispered rumors, stolen moments, and desperate searching. With Mira's help, Elian navigated the labyrinthine underbelly of the city, where time bent and folded in maddening loops. They encountered frightened citizens, caught in endless repetitions, fragments of conversations repeating like broken records. At one turn, they found a street vendor trapped in a loop, shouting the same phrase over and over, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. Elian reached out, murmuring comfort, but the man was caught in the web of fractured time, unreachable. The city's chaos was spreading faster than Elian had imagined. Each broken gear, each cracked clock, sent ripples through the delicate weave of reality. The curse was no longer a distant threat, it was here, alive and hungry. Yet amid the dread, a spark of hope glimmered. Elian's skill with mechanisms, his empathy for those ensnared by the loops, and Mira's unwavering loyalty formed a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. Together, they pieced together fragments of truth hidden in the whispered stories of the city's oldest clockmakers and in the cryptic murmurs of past voices. But the more Elian uncovered, the heavier the burden grew. The broken gears were a symptom of something far deeper, a wound in the very heart of time itself. And within that wound lay the shadow of the chronomancer, a figure whose tragic past and twisted ambition threatened to shatter fate's fragile balance forever. As night fell over the city, Elian returned to the workshop, the cracked gear cradled in his palm. Outside, the persistent ticking of the clocks was a reminder of the relentless march of time and the desperate fight to keep it whole. He whispered to the gear, as he often did to the clocks themselves, "Hold on a little longer. We will fix this, I promise." But somewhere in the shadows, a faint, chilling laugh echoed, and the gears of fate continued to turn, both broken and unyielding. And the city waited, breath held on the edge of unraveling. The workshop was cloaked in the soft, incessant ticking of countless clocks, their rhythms weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to stretch beyond the walls and into the very fabric of time itself. Elian stood quietly, his sharp green eyes fixed upon the ancient tomb that lay open before Master Calder. The elder's silver hair caught the flickering candlelight, casting fleeting shadows across a face lined with the years of delicate work and heavy regrets. Master Calder's voice, usually steady and commanding, held a rare weight of sorrow as he began to speak. "You must understand, Elian, the power we clockmakers wield over the city's fate is a burden, as much as it is a gift. Long ago, before even I came to know the ticking heart of our home, there was one among us, a man who dared to grasp time itself." Elian leaned closer as the elder traced a finger over the yellowed pages, revealing faded sketches and cryptic annotations. "He was called the chronomancer," Calder continued, "a master artisan whose genius was matched only by his grief. He lost his family in a calamity intertwined with the very clocks he sought to command." The apprentice's breath caught. The story felt both distant and intimately familiar, stirring memories of his own lost parents in that mysterious accident. "What happened to him?" Elian asked, voice barely above a whisper. Master Calder's eyes darkened. He became consumed by his desire to rewrite fate, to undo the past. But time is no thread to be pulled without consequence. His experiments fractured the delicate mechanisms binding reality, and from that fracture, the curse was born. A heavy silence settled, punctuated only by the ticking chorus. Elian's gaze drifted to the workshop's far wall, where a faded mural loomed. It depicted a city caught in a maelstrom of swirling gears and broken clocks, faces frozen in terror and despair. The once vibrant colors had dulled, yet the scene's intensity remained palpable. It was chaos, Calder murmured, a time unraveling upon itself. Many perished, and those who survived bore scars deeper than any wound. I was among those who tried to mend what was broken, but... His voice faltered, shadowed by years of guilt. I failed. Elian felt a pang of empathy. The elder's confession made the weight of their shared duty all the more real. "Why tell me this now?" he asked. "Because you must know the stakes. The curse is not just a threat to the city, it is a legacy of pain and ambition. And only with understanding can you hope to break the cycle." Suddenly, Calder reached beneath the workbench and drew out a small, jagged gear, its edges worn and misshapen. This was part of the chronomancer's final device, meant to bind time to his will. Instead, it shattered the balance. Elian took the gear gingerly, feeling the cold metal bite into his palm. It was as if the broken piece carried the weight of all the lost moments, a tangible symbol of fractured fate. As the candle flickered, casting dancing shadows, the whispers of past clockmakers seemed to rise, faint voices entwined with the ticking. They spoke of caution and courage, of the perils of tampering with time and the hope that still lingered. Elian sat back, the gear resting in his hand, the story settling deep within him. The path ahead was fraught with danger and doubt, but also with purpose. To mend the broken gears of time, he would have to confront not only the curse, but the echoes of those who had fallen before him. And so, beneath the watchful eyes of countless ticking clocks, Elian steeled himself for the journey to come, knowing that the past would not release its secrets easily. But that only through their embrace could the future be forged anew. The city outside held its breath, the steady pulse of its clocks a fragile promise against the encroaching shadows. The hour was far from over, and the echoes of the past would soon resound across the unfolding moments. With a final glance at Master Calder, Elian whispered, "I will not fail." The elder nodded solemnly, a flicker of hope shining through the veil of regret. "Then let us begin." The air in the narrow alley was thick with the scent of damp stone and the faint metallic tang of old gears. Elian Marrow moved cautiously, his footsteps muffled against the cobblestones slick with evening mist. The city around him seemed to pulse with a peculiar rhythm, the ticking of countless clocks blending into a symphony that shaped every breath and heartbeat of those who dwelled within. Tonight, however, that symphony wavered, a discordant note threading through the steady ticking, unsettling and strange. He paused beneath a flickering gas lamp, its pale light casting long, wavering shadows that danced like ghostly fingers along the walls. A figure emerged from the gloom ahead, a woman, her silhouette slender and poised, her dark hair cascading in waves that caught the lantern light with an almost unnatural shimmer. Elian's breath caught. She was unlike anyone he'd seen before, her presence both unsettling and magnetic. "You are Elian Marrow," she said, her voice soft but edged with something sharp, like the faint chime of a delicate bell cracked, just enough to catch the ear. "I've been waiting for you." He hesitated. "Who are you?" "Call me Celine," she replied, stepping closer. Her eyes, gleaming faintly like fractured glass, seemed to hold the weight of countless secrets. "The clocks are breaking, Elian. The curse you sense is no accident." The chronomancer's shadow spreads, and with it, the very fabric of time begins to tear. Elian swallowed, feeling the chill of her words seep into his bones. The chronomancer, is he back? Celine's gaze flickered, a shadow passing over her features. He never truly left. He waits in the fractures, feeding on broken moments and shattered gears. If the city falls to the loops and echoes, all will be lost. Before Elian could respond, a low, haunting hum vibrated through the air. The alley seemed to darken further, the gas lamps sputtering as if struggling against some unseen force. From the shadows, flickers of movement began to coalesce, translucent shapes, shimmering with an otherworldly light, drifting like mist but bearing the unmistakable forms of people frozen in time. Time's spirits, corrupted and twisted by the chronomancer's influence, drifted silently, their hollow eyes reflecting desperation and despair. Elian stepped back, heart pounding. "What are they?" "Echoes of lives caught in the loops," Celine whispered. "Lost souls bound to the broken gears. They are warnings and threats." Suddenly, a sharp clatter rang out as fragments of shattered clockwork rained down from the rooftops, tinkling against the stone like sinister rainfall. The city square beyond the alley trembled, the very air thickening with temporal distortion. The boundaries between moments blurred, and Elian felt the fragile weave of reality fray at the edges. "You must be ready," Celine said, her voice urgent now. "The chronomancer's constructs are rising, they will come for you." Elian nodded, steeling himself. "Tell me what I must do." They parted as silently as they had met, and Elian hurried back to his workshop, the familiar scent of oil and metal grounding him amid the swirling chaos. Yet inside, the shadows seemed to stretch and pulse, as if the darkness itself was alive. On his workbench lay the broken gear he had salvaged from the cracked city clock, a delicate, intricate piece that should have fit perfectly into the mechanism of fate. But now it felt alien, resistant. He held the gear in his hands, tracing its fractured teeth with trembling fingers. The visions of his lost family flickered behind his eyes, moments caught in the relentless loop of time. Echoes of pain and loss that the curse had spun around him and the city alike. With a deep breath, he set to work, the steady tick of clocks surrounding him both a comfort and a reminder of what was at stake. Outside, the sounds of the city warped and twisted. Time itself seemed to pulse unevenly, the steady beat of reality faltering. Elian's workshop door creaked open, and a shadow slithered across the threshold, a clockwork construct, its form jagged and incomplete, eyes glowing faintly with a cold temporal light. It moved with unnatural grace, the clinking of its broken gears echoing like a death knell. Elian's heart surged with a mixture of fear and resolve. This was no longer a distant threat. The chronomancer's influence was here, creeping into every corner of the city, every tick of the clock. He tightened his grip on the tools before him. "I will not let the city fall," he whispered. The construct advanced, and the battle between shattered time and fragile hope began, the fate of all woven in the shadows and fragments of a world on the brink of unraveling. As the night deepened, Elian knew with stark clarity that the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. Yet in the cryptic warnings of Selene and the haunting presence of corrupted spirits, he found a spark of fragile but persistent hope that even broken gears could be mended. And that fate, though powerful, was not beyond challenge. The city's heartbeat quickened, the ticking clocks marking time not just in seconds, but in the thread of destiny itself. And Elian Marrow, apprentice clockmaker, stood ready to face the shadows that threatened to consume it all. The night was far from over, and the curse was only beginning to reveal its true depths.